Well, you don't have to look far on YouTube or really anywhere on the internet to find countless people who are anxious to tell you about the millions or tens of millions of dollars that they made, how they did it, how easy it was, and how you can do that too. Well, that's not why I'm here today. I'm not here to tell you how I made my money and how you can. I'm here to tell you about how I made my money and how I spent it. All of it. Every last cent. And to tell you the truth, it was according to plan. I have no regrets. It's what I set out to do and what I ended up doing. A few months ago, I posted this AMA, Ask Me Anything, to Reddit about the topic. And I got amazing results, really phenomenal. I mean, there were like 9 million views, there were 12,300 likes, had an 85% upvote, and 2,600 comments. And comment they did from both sides. I came to realize that there were an awful lot of people who were fascinated by my story and wanted to hear more. Now, some people thought that I was just a greedy, selfish maniac who just didn't care about people. And others congratulated me, thinking I'd figured out the meaning of life and set out to do what I wanted to do and accomplished it. Whether I'm a sad, pathetic loser who wasted his life and all of his money, or a man who lived his life to the fullest and redefined the meaning of bucket list, well, that's going to be totally up to you. I'm just here to tell you the stories. Started back in 2005, I sold my business for $14 million. At the time, I did a lot of thinking and made a few choices and decisions, and I stuck by them and did my plan. And I've spent all my money. I've got nothing left. I mean nothing, like nothing, zero, zilch, broke. As a matter of fact, I'm about $260,000 in debt. And once again, sure, I made some mistakes, but I don't have regrets. And you know, I've done things that I've always dreamed of doing, and I'm proud of the things I've done. And frankly, I'm not ashamed of the things that I did and how I spent my money either. So, how exactly do you go about spending $14 million in 18 years? Well, it's much easier than you might think, let me tell you. Having expensive hobbies, having expensive tastes, day trading, let me tell you, I made and lost tens of millions of dollars in the market, but we'll talk about that later. Social life, I knew an awful lot of very beautiful, attractive, younger women. After my wife and I divorced, shortly after I sold the business, I indulged myself in the sugar daddy lifestyle for a while. You know, all these things add up, and pretty soon that money starts going away. You know, before I get into more details about the circumstances when I sold the company and how I was looking at things at the time, I want to address the elephant in the room. As I said, I've got more than a few haters on the internet out there. Some of them are just saying, you know what, it's bullshit, we don't believe you, it's just you're making it up to get attention. Well, I only wish. I've had a pretty adventurous life and I've done an awful lot of things, but anything that I claim or describe that I've done, I'm willing to back up with details, and in some cases even with documentation. So let's start off with my business sale. My company was Action Front Data Recovery. Go ahead, Google it and look it up. I sold the company to Seagate Technologies in 2005 for $14 million. Now, documentation. When you sell a company, you deal with lawyers, lots of lawyers. You sometimes think it'll never end. Get yourself a binder like this, all the documentation, all the things that you go through, and that's the deal of me selling the company. When you sell a business, first you negotiate a price and the terms, and after you've come to an agreement, everything gets turned over to the accountants and the lawyers. And you go through a process called due diligence, because nobody really believes anything you've said about your company. So lawyers and accountants come into your premises and go through every piece of paper you've ever had, every sale, every invoice, every employee you've had, to make sure the company is exactly as they believe it is. In my case, the process took about 6 months. Real pain in the ass. And these binders are what came out of the process at the end. It's the summary of the transaction. But eventually things do get done. And on the morning of November 5th, 2005, we sat down in the conference room in my lawyer's office with Seagate representatives. We signed every page, initialed and signed every page of that document, which quite honestly, we had to read and study and know what every word in there was, because if there's something wrong in there, it can cost you a fortune. Anyway, it's all done. We signed it. My lawyer advised me an hour later that he had received a transfer of funds from Seagate Technologies, and he was in the midst of transferring it to my RBC private banking account, which we had opened up a private banking account in anticipation of this transaction. Private banking, which I think is a scam, I'll tell you about later. So there I am. I basically headed off to the office, headed off to Action Front, closed up my office, emptied it out. By noon I left there and said goodbye to all the employees, and I've never been back since. Now, they did offer me employment. Seagate was glad to keep me on. They asked if I wanted to be a vice president of Europe. But I spoke to a lot of entrepreneurs who sold businesses. The reality of it is, you make a good boss but a terrible employee. That's what most entrepreneurs are. And very few people who stayed on afterwards with the new owners ever succeed at it. So I decided it's time to move on, and next chapter of my life, which is what we're going to talk about. Got to tell you, closing that deal, walking out the door, having $14 million in your pocket, unfucking believable. You know, it's like the world starts to hail you as an overnight success, not realizing is after decades of having worked at it. You know, I started this company in 1990 and basically spent 15 years building it up. Company went well. You know, by the time I sold it, we were doing $1 million a month in revenue. We had 45, 50 employees. We had branch offices in Toronto, our head office, and we also had Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, Santa Clara, New York City we just opened, had one in Texas, had a small one in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it actually opened one up in Amsterdam in Europe. So it was a good little business. I'd been at it for 15 years, and I was thrilled. But at the same time, I'm 52 years old. I'm not a young man. I've got all the money I've ever wanted, but you know what I don't have is my youth. Okay, so I don't want to get involved in more business ventures. I don't want to get involved in other things. I want to spend that money at 52 while I'm young enough to enjoy it. I saw too many people who stayed with business until they were into their 60s or 70s, got huge paydays, and couldn't take advantage of it to do the things they wanted to. I wasn't going to let that happen to me. So the whole process of due diligence took 6 months after we closed the deal. So I'd had lots of time to think about this, of what I wanted to do. I had access to great financial planners, accountants, tax lawyers, everything, and they helped me lay out my estate and deal with things correctly. But the goal of what I wanted to do was really quite different than most of them did. Wasn't concerned with making an estate. I was married, happily at the time I thought, but I didn't have any children. So I wasn't worried about passing on a legacy to my, kids. I wasn't worried about their well-being or security. I had some great family members and a lot of good friends. So I came up with a plan, and I decided to share my wealth with them. I basically told people, look, as far as I'm concerned, the last check I write in my life, I hope it bounces. I'm going out there to spend my money and enjoy it. But look, I want you to enjoy it too, and I want you to be a part of it. So I got checks for $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000. spread it out to my friends and family, my nieces, my nephews, my sisters. Gave significant bonuses to senior staff members who'd helped me build the company. And I basically said to everybody, I want you to celebrate my success. Don't wait till I pass away to see what my will is, because there'll be nothing left by that time. So I set about spending my money and enjoying my life. You know, I lived like a lottery winner for several years. You know, we've all heard about lottery winners who wasted all their money and ended up broke and penniless, or professional athletes who had bad financial advice, or, you know, were scammed by investment analysts, whatever the case may be. None of that applied to me. The things that I went through knowingly and willingly. Yeah, I took some big losses and made some mistakes, but I did it all knowingly with my eyes open, the intention of spending my money and enjoying it. So right off the bat, I had my parents, my elderly parents, who'd never owned a house in their life. They were lifetime renters. I bought them a house. My dad was handicapped. I had, you know, lifts put in for his wheelchair, had the house completely renovated, custom made for him. Went out and bought myself an Audi A8, the first of many luxury cars I got. But I was involved in motorsports. Now that's an expensive hobby. You think drugs are bad? Get into motorsports. Bought myself a Dodge Viper competition coupe, started racing. You know, I mean, budget of $500,000 a year at times. What else? I bought a home in Canmore. I traveled. Unbeknownst to me, it was just a few weeks later that my wife realized that she maybe wasn't all that much in love with me, so I had to go through a divorce. So there were ups and downs to it all, and I really want to share all the stories and all my escapades and all my adventures with you. And that's what this is going to be about. This channel and these videos, I'm going to tell you how I spent my money. You know, what did I do? What was motorsports like? What was traveling like? What's it like to be a sugar daddy? Day trading. How do you make money in day trading? And how do you lose money in day trading? I've got all kinds of stories to tell you. And if that gets boring, we can look at my past. I mean, one of the things that's in the background here is that before I started my business in the 1980s, I spent about a decade in South America as a pilot, and I became a known associate of Pablo Escobar in the Medellin cartel. Heck, I actually lived with Roberto Escobar, Pablo's brother and second in command, for several months in Medellin, and basically was with them day in and day out watching everything they do. So that ended up with me spending 13 months in a U.S. federal penitentiary, where they were squeezing me to try to cooperate with them to set up Pablo Escobar. But that's a whole different chapter of my life. It all came apart. I lost everything and came back to Toronto, started a business, and that's how I made my money, not through the illicit adventures. Anyway, I do have lots to talk about, and I hope that you're going to subscribe to my channel. First thing you got to do is like this video. Next thing you do, comments. Look, this whole thing's been set up through an AMA that I did on Reddit, and I want you to post your questions. Any questions you have, post them in the comments, and I'm going to make videos and answer your questions, and I'll get to all of them, and I'll let you know what's going on. By the way, you see the AMA in the background that's been scrolling? As you can see, it's not nearly done yet. Just to finish this off completely, let's just run it through to the end. Okay. So listen, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you subscribe. I do hope you'll keep watching my videos. This is the first of a series. I'm going to do lots more. And yeah, thank you very much and have yourself a great week.